The crystalline corridors of Vaelora shimmered like rivers of frozen light. Every step Commander Ethan Cole took echoed softly against the marble-like floor, his reflection stretching beneath him as if the palace itself watched. He had been inside alien halls before, but nothing compared to this. The air carried a faint hum, as though the walls themselves were alive, singing with the energy of the planet's radiant core. The Vaelorians were unlike any species he had met. Tall, graceful beings whose luminous markings pulsed faintly beneath their translucent skin, they moved with elegance that seemed both practiced and instinctive. Their eyes, silver, gold, or amethyst, followed him with a quiet, measuring curiosity. Some bowed with courtesy, others turned away with disdain. He was, after all, a human among gods. Ethan adjusted the collar of his uniform and straightened his posture as he neared the great throne chamber. The scent of ozone and foreign blossoms filled the air. The message summoning him had been brief and formal, an invitation from the ruler of Vaelora herself, Queen Seraphine. But the undertone of command had been unmistakable. When the doors opened, light poured from the chamber like a living tide. The throne was carved from pure crystal, its edges refracting the glow of the twin suns streaming through the vaulted glass. Queen Seraphine sat upon it, draped in flowing silver garments that shimmered like liquid starlight. Her eyes were cold yet impossibly beautiful, eyes that had seen centuries of rule, war, and the fragile birth of peace. "Commander Ethan Cole," her voice rang, calm yet heavy with power. "You stand before the throne of Vaelora. Do you know why you have been called?" Ethan bowed deeply. "I was told it concerns the Unity Accord, Your Majesty." "Indeed," she said, rising from her throne. "The war between our worlds has ended, but peace is not easily sustained by treaties alone. There must be a bridge between our bloodlines, an act of unity that cannot be broken by politics or time." Her words carried through the hall, every noble turning their radiant gaze toward the human. Ethan felt a weight settle on his chest, though he kept his voice steady. "And what form would this unity take, Your Majesty?" The Queen's eyes gleamed like glass catching sunlight. "You, Commander. You will choose one of my daughters to wed. The union shall symbolize the binding of our worlds." The murmur that rippled through the chamber sounded like distant thunder. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Marriage? He had come for diplomacy, not destiny. Yet there was no mistaking the command in her tone. He could refuse, but doing so might undo the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. The Queen raised one graceful hand. "Bring them forward." 3 figures emerged from the grand archway behind the throne. The first, Princess Lysara, walked with the poise of a warrior queen. Her violet skin shimmered like polished amethyst, and her gaze was fierce, unwavering. Power seemed to radiate from her presence. Every step deliberate, every breath regal. The nobles bowed slightly as she passed, and Ethan understood why. She was perfection sculpted into motion. The second, Princess Vaelora, followed with a different kind of grace, subtle, practiced, and alluring. Her smile was warm but calculated, her beauty softer but no less captivating. She moved like a dancer, aware of every eye in the room, each gesture rehearsed to charm and influence. And then there was the third. Princess Kaela entered quietly, her head bowed slightly beneath the soft cascade of silver-white hair that framed her face. Her skin held a gentler hue, violet touched by pale silver streaks that traced down her neck and arms like moonlight on water. The markings glowed faintly, beautiful and strange, though the whispers that rippled through the court were anything but kind. Ethan caught fragments of their murmurs. The flawed one, the cursed child. Why bring her here? Kaela's eyes flicked up briefly, and for a heartbeat he saw them, pale, luminous, and full of something neither of her sisters possessed. Not power, not charm, but a quiet sadness, and beneath it, an aching depth of kindness that felt almost human. Queen Seraphine gestured elegantly. "Behold my daughters. Lysara, heir of fire and command, Vaelora, mistress of grace and diplomacy, and Kaela," her tone hesitated, barely perceptible, "the youngest of my blood." Kaela lowered her gaze, her hands clasped tightly before her. The Queen continued, "As the ancient unity decree demands, you will choose one of them. Whomever you select will stand as your partner in the bond between our races. The choice must be made now before the assembled court." The chamber fell silent. Ethan's thoughts raced. This was no simple task. His choice would shape not only his fate but the fragile peace between two civilizations. Every gaze pressed upon him, every noble waiting for him to say the obvious name, the perfect Lysara, or the graceful Vaelora. But his eyes lingered on Kaela. She did not look at him again. Her shoulders were tense, her head slightly bowed. She seemed to want to disappear, as though her presence were an inconvenience. But there was something about her quietness, the way she stood slightly apart from the others, that drew him in. A silent strength hidden beneath timidity, a spark that the others could not see. He stepped forward. "I choose her." A wave of gasps swept through the chamber. Nobles exchanged shocked glances. Some laughed outright, the sound sharp and cruel. Kaela's head lifted sharply, her wide eyes reflecting disbelief. Queen Seraphine's expression did not change, but a faint tremor passed through her composure. "You choose Kaela?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Yes, Your Majesty." "I do." For a moment silence reigned. Then the Queen inclined her head. "So be it. The unity decree is fulfilled." Kaela's lips parted slightly, her voice barely audible. "You chose me?" Ethan offered a small, reassuring nod. "Yes, Princess." Her fingers trembled as she bowed, unable to find words. Around them, the court continued to whisper and sneer, but Ethan no longer cared. Somewhere deep inside, he knew he had made the only choice that felt right. The Queen's voice rang out again, formal and final. "The Union will be prepared. Let the human and my daughter stand together as the symbol of this new dawn." As the hall erupted in murmurs and cold laughter, Ethan glanced at Kaela once more. Her eyes, though uncertain, held a glimmer of light, a fragile hope flickering to life against the glare of the court. And though he did not yet know it, that choice, the one everyone mocked, would change the fate of two worlds forever. The ceremony was held beneath the palace's grand spire, a towering crystal that reached into the clouds and refracted the sun's light into 1,000 shimmering colors. What should have been a celebration of unity felt instead like a quiet act of defiance. The nobles stood in their shining robes, whispering behind jeweled fans. Their laughter, though restrained, cut through the air like a hidden blade. Kaela stood beside Ethan, her hands clasped before her as the sacred rites were spoken. Her gown glowed faintly in the sunlight, threads of silver light weaving across its fabric, but she kept her gaze low, almost as though afraid to meet his eyes again. When the vows were complete and the ritual ended, the Queen's voice echoed through the hall. "The bond is sealed. May Vaelora and Earth walk together in peace." Applause followed, polite and distant. That night, Ethan was shown to his new quarters, lavish chambers at the eastern wing of the palace. When the attendants left, he found himself staring out the window at the twin moons rising over Vaelora's radiant cityscape. The view was breathtaking. Rivers of light flowed through the streets, and the air shimmered faintly with crystalline dust. Yet beneath the beauty, he felt the weight of isolation. He heard the door slide open behind him. Kaela entered quietly, still wearing the ceremonial gown, her hands nervously brushing the folds of fabric. "I hope my presence does not make you uncomfortable," she said softly. Her voice was gentle, melodic, but it trembled slightly. Ethan turned to face her. "You are my wife now, Princess. You do not have to ask permission to be near me." Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "I am still learning what that means." He gestured toward the balcony. "Come see this. Your world is beyond words." Kaela hesitated before joining him. The moonlight caught in her silver streaks, making them glow faintly against her skin. For a while, neither spoke. The city stretched endlessly below, lights like stars scattered across the surface of a living jewel. Finally, she said, "You could have chosen my sisters. They are what the court expected. Lysara is strong, Vaelora is charming. I am—" She hesitated, searching for the word. "Less." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "You are not less." "Do not believe them." She shook her head gently. "You do not know our customs. Here, perfection is everything. My markings, these streaks, are seen as a flaw, a sign that something went wrong when I was born." Ethan's voice was calm. "Then perhaps they are blind, because I have never seen anything more unique or more beautiful." Her eyes widened slightly, color rising to her cheeks. She looked away quickly, but the faintest smile tugged at her lips. Over the weeks that followed, their lives settled into a rhythm. Their marriage, though political in purpose, began to take on something warmer. Ethan attended diplomatic meetings and military councils, while Kaela fulfilled ceremonial duties beside him. The nobles still whispered, but their mockery grew quieter as Ethan refused to be swayed by their scorn. He treated her with unwavering respect, never once speaking down to her or letting others do so in his presence. One afternoon during a council gathering, a nobleman named Lorvin dared to make a remark about Kaela's defective lineage. The words had barely left his mouth when Ethan's fist met his jaw with enough force to send him sprawling. The hall fell silent. "She is your princess," Ethan said coldly, "and my wife. Speak of her like that again and I will forget diplomacy." After that day, the whispers changed. Some mocked him in private, but others began to look at Kaela differently, perhaps for the first time seeing her not as a flaw, but as someone chosen and defended by a man who owed their world nothing. Kaela noticed the change, and though she said little, her eyes often lingered on him with quiet gratitude. Their bond grew in small, unspoken ways. Shared meals became easier. Conversations grew longer. She would tell him about the constellations visible from Vaelora's poles. He would speak of Earth's oceans and the scent of rain. They laughed softly over the strange differences between their worlds, the taste of food, the meaning of gestures, the rhythm of language. Sometimes at night, Ethan would find her in the moonlit gardens, barefoot, her gown trailing over the luminous grass that glowed faintly under the stars. She liked to hum there, old songs from her childhood, haunting and serene. One night he joined her. "You hear that sound?" she said quietly. "The flowers sing when the moons align. It is said they remember the first dawn of Vaelora." Ethan smiled faintly. "Your world is full of wonders." Kaela turned her gaze toward him. "And yet you still miss yours?" He hesitated. "Sometimes, but less than I expected." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression soft. "You are different from what they said humans were. They called your kind violent, cold, unfeeling. And what do you think now?" he asked, her voice lowered. "I think they were wrong." The air between them grew still, filled only by the distant hum of crystal wind chimes. Their eyes met, and in that quiet exchange something changed. Something unspoken, fragile, but real. Days turned into weeks. The palace seemed brighter when they were together. Kaela began to smile more openly, to walk with confidence that had not been there before. Ethan, once the outsider, found himself growing attached to this world of light and melody. Not because of its splendor, but because of her. Then came the storm. It began with distant thunder that rolled across the crystalline sky. By nightfall, rain lashed against the palace domes, scattering silver droplets that glowed faintly as they fell. Power flickered through the halls. Guards hurried to secure the towers. Ethan found himself stranded in Kaela's chambers after the storm sealed the palace doors. The air was cool, perfumed by the scent of the storm flowers blooming outside. Kaela stood near the window, watching lightning flash across the horizon. "I have never seen a storm like this," Ethan said softly. She smiled faintly. "Vaelora's storms are rare, but when they come, they remind us that even beauty has fury." The lightning illuminated her face, tracing her delicate features in silver light. Ethan stepped closer, drawn by something deeper than reason. "Kaela," he said quietly, "do you ever regret that I chose you?" Her breath caught. She turned toward him, eyes wide. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I see how they look at you," he replied. "How they whisper." "You did not choose this." She shook her head slowly. "No, but neither did you. And yet you treat me with kindness. You see me when others do not." The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the walls. Kaela took a hesitant step closer, her voice trembling. "When you chose me, I thought it was out of duty, but now, I do not know what it is anymore." Ethan met her gaze, his heart pounding. "Neither do I. But I know what I feel when I look at you." She stood before him, close enough that he could see the soft glow of her markings pulsing faintly with each breath. Her voice was barely a whisper. "And what do you feel?" He did not answer with words. The space between them dissolved as he reached for her, his hand finding hers. The moment was tender, unhurried, filled with unspoken emotions. When she leaned into him, their foreheads touched, and the world outside vanished. The lightning flared once more, painting them in silver light, and in that fragile, luminous silence, Kaela's heart, once burdened by shame, found warmth in the man who had never treated her as less than royal. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean beneath the rising suns. Kaela stood at the balcony, the light dancing across her skin. Ethan joined her, and when their hands brushed, neither pulled away. What had begun as a political union had become something far deeper. Neither of them said it aloud, but both knew it. The bond between them was no longer duty. It was love. The days that followed felt brighter than any before. The court still whispered, but their voices carried less certainty now. The queen, ever composed, watched her daughter from afar with eyes that revealed little. Yet there were moments, brief, almost imperceptible, when her expression softened as she saw Kaela walking beside the human who had once been a stranger. Kaela had changed. The timid princess who once walked in shadows now stood taller, her presence gentle yet commanding. Her laughter, soft and clear, began to echo through the palace gardens, and for the first time the servants smiled when they spoke of her. Ethan had not simply married into Vaelora, he had become a part of it. But peace, as Ethan had long learned, was fragile. It began with a glance exchanged between Lysara and Varel during a council session, a look sharp enough to cut glass. They spoke politely to their sister, but their smiles carried poison. Their mother's affection, though measured, had begun to shift. The attention of the court had turned from the perfect daughters to the one who had once been overlooked. Envy had taken root where pride had once bloomed. That night, in the queen's private chamber, Lysara and Varel stood before their mother in silence. "You have grown quiet," Seraphine said, her tone cool. "Does your sister's happiness trouble you?" Lysara's gaze flickered. "I only wonder if the court sees what you see, mother. The peace with Earth should be celebrated, but whispers grow louder each day. They say Kaela's bond with the human weakens the throne." Varel added smoothly. The nobles question whether she is fit to stand beside him. "She was never trained for rule." "You risk your legacy for sentiment." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Do not mistake my patience for blindness." The sisters bowed, their faces composed, but the bitterness remained. When they left the chamber, the corridors seemed darker. In the weeks that followed, the air around the palace grew tense. Rumors circulated. False reports that Kaela had betrayed state secrets to the Human Council, that her strange markings were signs of corruption, that Ethan sought to seize power through her. None of it was true, but in the court of whispers, truth mattered little. Ethan noticed the change in Kaela's eyes, the way her brightness dimmed, the faint worry that crept into her voice. "They are turning against you," she said one evening as they dined in the quiet of their private hall. "They are turning against us," Ethan corrected gently, "and we will face them together." She smiled faintly, but her fingers trembled as she set down her glass. "You do not understand how far they will go, Ethan. My sisters have always wanted the throne. They will not allow a human to stand beside the future Queen of Vaelora. Then we show them what strength truly means," he said firmly. "We do not hide." That night, as they walked the glowing gardens, Kaela rested her head against his shoulder. The stars shimmered above them, mirrored by the crystalline petals below. For a few stolen moments, the world felt safe again. But safety is a fragile illusion. The night of the royal feast arrived, a grand celebration meant to honor the 10th cycle of peace between Earth and Vaelora. The great hall glowed with cascading lights, and the air shimmered with the hum of music played on crystal instruments. Nobles in radiant attire filled the room, and Queen Seraphine presided from her throne, her face unreadable. Ethan stood beside Kaela, their hands linked subtly beneath the table. Her sisters sat across from them, smiles frozen in polite stillness. A servant passed behind Ethan, refilling his cup. He noticed a faint tremor in the man's hand, a brief flash of fear in his eyes. Then the servant disappeared into the crowd. Moments later, Kaela's markings flickered. Her expression changed. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice tight, "do not drink." He looked down. The liquid shimmered faintly, too faint for the human eye to notice, but Kaela saw it. Before he could react, the lights dimmed. A sharp crash echoed through the hall. The doors burst open. Figures in dark armor stormed in, their movements swift and silent, blades catching the glow of the crystal lamps. Panic spread through the nobles like wildfire. Screams echoed, tables overturned, and guards rushed to defend the queen. Ethan drew his sidearm from beneath his coat, instinct taking over. "Kaela, stay behind me." The attackers struck without mercy. Their blades were coated with something that hissed when it met air, poison or worse. Ethan blocked one strike, then another, moving with trained precision, but they were too many. One blade slipped past his guard and sank into his side. The pain burned white-hot. He staggered but did not fall. Kaela screamed his name. The sound froze the hall. In that instant, something inside her broke. Her hands, trembling, lifted as though by instinct. The silver streaks along her skin flared to life, glowing with blinding intensity. The air around her vibrated, a deep hum that resonated through every crystal in the palace. The assassins froze mid-step, their blades raised, their eyes wide in terror. Light exploded from her palms, pure, searing, alive. It tore through the attackers like a storm of stars, dissolving their weapons into dust. The hall filled with the radiance of her power, and for a moment it was as though Vaelora's twin sons had descended upon them. When the light faded, silence reigned. The assassins lay motionless. The nobles trembled in awe. Kaela stood at the center of the devastation, her breath shaking, tears glimmering in her eyes. Ethan fell to one knee, clutching his side. She rushed to him, her hands glowing faintly as she pressed them to the wound. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Do not leave me, Ethan. I will not lose you too." The warmth from her hand spread through him, soothing the pain, sealing the injury as the energy wove itself into his skin. When he opened his eyes again, she was crying, silent tears tracing glowing paths down her cheeks. The queen rose slowly from her throne, her expression unreadable as she descended the steps. The court parted before her. "You have the gift," Seraphine said softly. "The power of the first line, the one we believed lost forever." Kaela's voice trembled. "I did not know." "No," her mother replied. "You were never meant to. The mark they mocked you for was the sign of the true heir. Only the blood of the first line can summon the heartlight." A murmur swept through the nobles, disbelief and awe mingling in equal measure. Lysara and Virel stood frozen, their faces pale, their ambition shattered in an instant. The queen turned toward them. "You plotted against your own blood, against the peace that binds us. You have brought shame to this house." Lysara tried to speak, but no words came. Virel lowered her head, trembling. Seraphine looked back at Kaela and Ethan. "Your bond was not chance. It was destiny. Through you, our worlds have found their true union." Kaela looked at Ethan, her voice barely a whisper. "I only wanted to save him." He reached for her hand, his fingers closing gently around hers. "You did." The dawn that followed was unlike any Vaelora had seen before. The twin suns rose together, their light breaking across the crystal spires and painting the palace in hues of gold and violet. The scent of renewal filled the air. In the great courtyard, thousands gathered, humans and Vaelorians side by side. The war banners of the past had been replaced with symbols of unity. Music drifted through the air, soft and radiant, woven from the very resonance of the palace crystals. Ethan stood at the edge of the steps, dressed in ceremonial armor of silver and deep blue. The wound that once threatened his life had faded into nothing more than a faint mark, a reminder of what had been overcome. His eyes searched the horizon until he saw her. Kaela appeared at the top of the staircase, dressed in flowing robes of white and pale gold. The delicate patterns of her markings shimmered like sunlight through water, and a faint glow surrounded her as she moved. Every step she took seemed to awaken the light within the stones. Themselves? The crowd fell silent as she reached the dais where her mother waited. "Queen." Seraphine regarded her daughter for a long moment before speaking, her voice carrying across the courtyard with the calm authority of centuries. "You were born under the twin suns, a child no one believed would rise. But today the truth is revealed. The power of the first line flows through you, and the bond you have forged with this human has united our worlds in ways no treaty ever could." She paused, her gaze shifting to Ethan. "You came here as a stranger, and through courage and loyalty, you have earned our trust. You have defended our people, and in doing so, you have proven that humanity and Vaelora share one heart." The queen stepped forward, placing her hands upon their joined ones. "Let it be known, from this day forth, Kaela of Vaelora shall rule beside Ethan of Earth, as equals, as guardians, and as symbols of the covenant between stars." The crystal crown shimmered as it descended upon Kaela's head. The light that radiated from it was not cold or blinding. It was warm, alive, almost breathing. The crowd erupted in a chorus of voices. the sound rising like waves through the morning sky. Ethan turned to her, eyes filled with quiet wonder. "You are their queen now," he said softly. Kaela smiled, her voice steady and full of emotion. "And you are my strength." As the ceremony ended, the two walked through the courtyard hand in hand. The people bowed, not out of fear, but out of hope. For the first time in living memory, Vaelora and Earth stood truly united, not through treaties or war, but through love and sacrifice. Later that evening, as twilight settled over the palace, Ethan and Kaela stood on the balcony overlooking the shining city below. The twin moons hung above them, their reflections mirrored in the endless sea of crystal rooftops. The air shimmered softly, filled with the hum of life and renewal. Kaela leaned against the railing, her hair catching the moonlight like threads of silver. "Do you ever wonder," she asked quietly, "what would have happened if you had chosen differently that day?" Ethan looked at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "No, because that choice led me here." She turned toward him, her eyes glowing softly. "You changed everything, Ethan. You gave me a reason to fight, to believe." He reached out, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "You were never meant to live in shadows, Kaela. You were born to shine." A gentle breeze stirred around them, carrying the scent of the crystal blossoms below. The palace lights reflected in their eyes, two souls bound across worlds, their hearts beating in perfect rhythm. Kaela whispered, "Do you think they will ever stop doubting us?" He smiled. "Let them doubt. We will keep proving them wrong." She laughed softly, and for a moment everything else disappeared. The court, the crowns, the weight of destiny. There was only them, standing beneath the moons, their hands entwined, their hearts unbroken. Far below, the people celebrated late into the night. Lanterns rose into the sky like stars being reborn, carrying wishes whispered by every citizen of Vaelora and Earth alike. From that night onward, legends spread across the stars, the tale of the human who won the heart of the forgotten princess, and the princess who saved a world with her light. They called it the Covenant of Hearts, a story of two souls who refused to bow to fate, and in doing so, rewrote the destiny of two civilizations. And so, beneath the eternal glow of the twin moons, Kaela and Ethan ruled not with power or fear, but with faith, compassion, and love strong enough to outshine the heavens themselves. The light of Vaelora never faded again,